name is Brenton. Thanks for joining me again this week. Are Aldi wines worth it? Well, the other day I went to Aldi to pick up some groceries, and I've always seen their Winking Owl wines for about $3. So I decided to pick up a couple and see what they're all about. So I did a little bit of research, and Winking Owl is part of the E&J Gallo wine conglomerate. They have over 100 labels, and it's one of the big players in the wine game. This one isn't exactly in their portfolio, but it's definitely made by them. So we've got a Winking Owl Sauvignon Blanc and a Winking Owl Cabernet Sauvignon. So I think this should be interesting. So we'll get started with the Sauvignon Blanc. So I brought a wine key this time because there are a couple things I want to show people, and this is a good example with these particular wine bottles because there's no pull tab on them. So if you have your wine key, sometimes you notice that there's this little knife thing in here. So what this is actually for is for removing the cap. So you take it and you kind of run it along the top in a nice circle, and off it goes. So then we'll go ahead and we'll close it. Put the screw in there. And this one has like a double step on the apparatus that you use to pull the cork out. So what you'll do is you'll make it go down most of the way, and then you pull this first part in and you pull it out, and then it'll only let you go about that far, and obviously that's not all the way out. So that's what this second step is for. So you take that second step and put it right there, and out it goes all the way. So with this Sauvignon Blanc is known for being dry, light-bodied, and really crisp. This one is made in California, so they use California grapes. So we'll go ahead and we'll see what this is all about. So right away we can tell it's got a nice pale straw color to it. I'm not it's pretty clear. There is a little bit of bubbles in there, so it makes me wonder if there's some effervescence in there, even if they didn't mean to. There's some legs, but not a lot. So that's kind of interesting. Let it open up nice. Okay, so it smells clean. It almost has like a creamy thing going on with it a little bit. Not a huge knock it out of the park type nose to it, but it's pleasant. I'm gonna say it's got notes of like lemon and maybe some green apple, which is high. So it smells acidic, which for Sauvignon Blanc is pretty typical. That's what gives it that crisp characteristic. And I would definitely serve this cold because the dry, crisp wines like this do best when they're served well chilled. Okay, so it's definitely very, very light in body. It's got a minerality to it, almost like a wet stone, which is interesting. Um, doesn't have much of a finish to it. I would say it's probably a porch pounder. This is one that you would just pour a glass and on a hot afternoon in the summertime and have at it. Um, as far as the flavor profile, um, back of the tongue, it's really tangy. Definitely that some of that lemon coming through and that higher acidity. But in the front, it's fairly soft, so it's kind of interesting. But there's not a whole lot going on with it. Honestly, after the first sip, it kind of yeah. After the first sip, the flavor diminishes, but it's a $3 wine. Uh, for what it is, I think $3. It's not bad. I don't know that this is something that I would drink on a regular basis, but if I was just looking for something quick to have on a cold day, I would drink this again. As far as pairing, it's really light, so you want to find something uh, fairly light to pair with it. I would say uh, maybe like a chicken salad or something. Uh, Greens, any kind of salad would go well with this. A lighter fish, maybe. I wouldn't go full bore on the fish, but if you had a lighter fish, maybe lightly fried, I think it would do pretty well. So that's a Sauv Blanc, and again, it's Winking Owl, and you can find this at Aldi, and it's less than $3. And according to the label, it still has a decent alcohol ABV at 12%. So they didn't water it down or anything. So the next one should be interesting because generally when you think of Cabernet Sauvignon, it's a more expensive wine. You know what I mean? I was really surprised that the Cab Sauv was offered at $3, just like all of their other wines. They have a handful of other ones that they have in this label. I know they've got a Pinot Grigio, and they've got a Moscato. They've got a Merlot, and I think I saw a different red blend there too. So they have a handful of different things, and all of them are the same price. It came in at less than $3. But like I said, generally when you think of a Cab Sauv, you're thinking of a more expensive, elegant wine. So this one is going to be more interesting for me, I think. Cab Sauv is kind of like known for being big and bold and usually oaky. Right off the bat, I can see that it has a nice color and it's pretty clear, but it's not as dark as I would expect a Cab Sauv to be. So that's just something to note. It has a nice ruby red color to it, but I can see all the way through the glass. If I look through it, I can see the camera. So it's pretty light. We'll get it to open up here a little bit. Not seeing any legs on this one. Maybe a couple. Which tells me that the viscosity is not particularly high on this one. So I don't know. Speculating maybe they watered it down a little bit. Maybe that's how they got the price of a cab sauv down so low. Since I'm moving from a white to a red, and really it's good practice anytime you do this. Anytime you're going between a wine, you want to use a palate cleanser, whether it's cracker or, in this case, I'm just going to use water. Just to get the wine from before kind of cleansed out of the system. It's also a good idea when you're tasting to keep in mind how sweet a wine is. If you're going to be drinking a couple, you want to start with drier and then go sweeter. Because if you drink a sweet, say you drink a Moscato and then you go to a dry Pinot Grigio, that Pinot Grigio is going to taste like water because there's so much sugar in the Moscato. It's kind of the same thing when you're going from whites to reds. Reds tend to have a lot more flavor and they're heavier. So my personal opinion is if you're going to taste things, you should always taste a white before a red. And that's why I chose to drink these in this particular order. So let's go ahead and we'll finish evaluating this cab sauv. It's got a nice nose to it. There's not a lot of fruit there, which that's okay. You find that in a lot of California wines because the fruit gets a lot more ripe. This one also comes in at 12% alcohol by volume. I do get a little bit of oak, but it comes out after it opens up a little bit more. And I wouldn't say that it's a lot of oak, but it's definitely there. I'm getting maybe some darker fruits, like I'm not going to say blackberry because there's the legs. Now I see legs. Okay. I wouldn't say blackberry, but I'm trying to think of some other darker fruits, like maybe like a plum. It's kind of got a plum quality to it. Maybe a touch of vanilla from that oak. And I'm going to guess that this wine went through something called ML, or malolactic fermentation, which is a process winemakers use to change malic acid into lactic acid, because the lactic acid is a lot softer and kind of gives it a creamy, kind of buttery texture. And because malic acid is really harsh, that's what you find in like apples and stuff like that. So if you can change that into something a little bit softer, it really helps smooth out a wine and brings the acid content down. And it's not like alcoholic fermentation. So when you do malolactic fermentation, it's actually a fermentation that is facilitated by bacteria, which is interesting. Something that I'm really familiar with because being a northern Michigan winemaker and Cellarmaster, that was something that we had to do quite a bit to help bring some of the higher acid levels down in our reds. And I really think that they did that to this wine. I could be wrong, but I'm kind of getting a little bit of that buttery, creamy thing going on. So let's go ahead and we'll taste it and we'll see what we come up with. medium bodied. I'm not gonna say it's full bodied because it's it's not super heavy. It's pretty smooth. Um, I'm getting some tannins that are really noticeable on the side of my tongue, which is pretty characteristic with a cab sauv. Cab sauvs tend to have a little bit more of a tannin structure than a lot of other wines. It's actually pretty good. It's almost got like a spice to it in the middle and towards the back. I actually think this is a higher quality wine than the Sauvignon Blanc was, which is interesting. Um, Flavor wise, right up front, I get more of that dark fruit, maybe plum, uh, which is interesting because that's kind of the smell that I got, or really ripened dark fruit immediately up front, and then the tannins kind of roll off the side of my tongue and kind of give it that kind of puckery feeling. I wouldn't say it's dry, but I wouldn't say it's super dry. They did a pretty good job of balancing it out. I definitely get that vanilla that we could smell. I can taste that a little bit, not so much up front, but in the middle definitely. So that is a pleasant surprise. This is actually not terrible. Um, yeah, that's pretty impressive actually. I've had better, but I mean it's a $3 bottle of wine. I don't think you could beat anything for $3. I don't think you could find anything better than that for $3. Um, yeah, very pleasant. I was gonna pair it with something. I don't think I would go full blown heavy steak type thing. I think this would probably do better with like a like a pasta, maybe like a red pasta, just spaghetti or baked ziti or something like that. Chicken parm maybe, that would be interesting. But yeah, so overall, I think the Cab Sauv is by far better than the Sauv Blanc. Sauv Blanc isn't bad, but it's not my favorite. This one, worth every penny of $3. The Cab Sauv is worth every penny of $3. So if you go to Aldi, look for their Winking Owl, section. Every Aldi I've ever been in, I've seen this in, and I've always kind of been curious. So for $3, you can't really go wrong. I mean, if you like it, great. You found something that you can drink for $3. If you don't, you're out $3. No big deal. So, yeah. So I want to thank you for hanging out with me and watching the whole thing. I really appreciate it. So in the coming weeks, I'm going to start implementing some of the other things that I've been working on. I've been working on a website, and I'm working on trying to figure out how to source winemaking supplies, and I think I've done it, but it's one of those things that's kind of like a learning curve. I'm also got merch like t-shirts and hats and stuff like that set up. So if once I get that going, if those are the types of things that are going to help me support the channel, whether it's buying wine for wine tastings or buying wine equipment so that I can show home winemakers how to do what they need to do to make great wine at home. So if you haven't already, share with your friends what I'm doing. Love to have more people learning about wine. I love teaching people, and so be sure to like the Facebook page, give the YouTube channel a subscription, and be on the lookout for more content in the next couple weeks. I think next week I'm gonna go out in the yard and kind of show everybody what I got going on here, because I got some things that I'm pretty excited about, and I've got a lot of space and a lot of ideas about things that I can do as far as winemaking goes. So stay tuned, and thank you. We'll see you next time.